Start the day off with charity, giving charity. Charity saves from death. Charity saves brings the Moshiach. Charity gives everything that's good. If you find even if there's no one poor by you can always put it in a charity box. even if you're poor, you can always find someone who's lacking something, a good morning or something, or even to give a nickel. How much is a pruta? I don't know, a nickel, a dime. Okay, let's so what were we learning about going out of Egypt? We're learning about going out of Egypt, and we're talking about going out of Egypt even in the nighttime. And this is all hinted at by the last Mishnah in the first chapter of the Mishnayot of Brachot. That says that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was appointed to be the head of the Sanhedrin, the head of the High Court of Israel, which basically means he was the head of the Jewish people. And on that day, he issued in a law which says that we say the third chapter of Shema Yisrael, even in the nighttime. The third chapter of Shema Yisrael has in it talking about going out of Egypt. So it says you should therefore talk about going out of Egypt even in the nighttime. And the rabbi said that you should bring to the days of the Mashiach, that you should talk about going out of Egypt. Talk about going out of Egypt even in the days of the Mashiach. So that's what he's talking about. Even though that sentence is taken a little bit out of context, if we say, because it means that even in the days of the Mashiach, you're supposed to mention the third chapter of Shema. But the simple meaning, what the words say is that even in the days of the Mashiach, we'll still have to talk about going out of Egypt. And the Rebbe said, why? Because the whole thing of going out of Egypt implies that you're striving to improve, going from what you think is good to what really is good, to what God thinks is good. Oh. So you have to always check yourself out to see if what you think is good and what you're certain is good is what God thinks is good. And that's written in a book called the Tanya. Benoni is a person that no matter how great he is, even if everybody tells him he's great, he always has to be checking himself out to say, maybe latent inside of my essence of my being is a big egotism. And that really maybe I'm just doing everything for myself, which that's the opposite of Judaism. Al Pianal, according to what we said before. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, according to what we said before, so now we can understand why our question that we had in the beginning, why is it that this week's Torah portion that begins with the words, these are the names of the Jewish people that went into Egypt, is talking about going out of Egypt? Because in a way, it's talking about a different type of an Egypt. In the Torah portion, the simple meaning is talking about the Jewish people that physically went into Egypt, Jacob and his sons. They went into a physical place called Egypt. And in the end, what it means going out of Egypt means going out of your own personal limitations that prevent you from feeling God, from seeing God, from loving God, from fearing God, from having faith in God. That essentially you're just doing everything for yourself. And that going out of being selfish, even to the highest and most delicate levels, that's called going out of Egypt. That's the Egypt we're striving to go out of, that the Mashiach is going to take us out of. Because that's what it means, that the beginning of this week's Torah portion, which says clearly these are the names of the Jewish people going into Egypt, is really talking about going out of Egypt, even though that simply it's talking about going into Egypt. We're talking about going out of Egypt even in the nighttime. That means that even the more indicates that the true topic, the true, how do you say, the fact of coming into Egypt, going into the darkness of exile, is really going out. Why? To bring Lemos to Mashiach. Because every single day we're coming closer and closer to the true purpose of Mashiach. That just like Moses took us out of physical, geographical Egypt, as Mashiach will take us out of existential, I want to call it, is that a good word, in Egypt? Or simply I'll take us out of our own selfishness, our own false egotism. our own unnecessary worries and desires and lusts and anger and addictions and what is it, etc. The Indian Naimiti, that's the true, true idea of going out of Egypt. And therefore, Al Shem Geulat Yisrael, Ms. Karen Khan. That's what the Midrash says. That this sentence talking about going into Egypt is really talking about the final step of going out of Egypt, which will be done by Mashiach. Ki kavanahu, the purpose is, the intention is shemitzav shambad matzav aboim Mitzrayim. This whole idea of going into Egypt, which means limitations, false limitations, and false, they say the obstructions. The Yifalu v'Yigalu will reveal how it is not only just for the sake. Every step of this exile is not just for the sake of the redemption, but this is itself another stage in redemption. Gula mitit v'shleima. We'll also even to add on to Bnei Israel that the Jewish people that come into Egypt were shivim nefesh, were 70 souls. I don't know, maybe I'm just making this up. Let me give an example which just popped into my mind. Let's say that there's a person that is, God forbid, goes into a war or something, and he gets shot, and he gets taken prisoner, and all sorts of terrible things happen to him. And then eventually he escapes and runs away, and he meets up with people, and he convinces them to help him, and etc. And then he convinces them the justice of his mission in life, and that there should be the same thing, how bad communism is, whatever. And finally, after all these trials and tribulations, he comes out, and he comes out a better person. He comes out with a person that he's has more patience for others, and he understands the pain of others. And there was once a girl that came to my son, advises people in all sorts of different ways. There was once a girl that came, and she said that I don't know if we should talk about that, but that's where she was raped by her father. She was raped by her father, I guess, for a while, until finally they caught him and they put. So she, of course, she felt, very, the person she trusted, she wanted to do this, did these terrible things to her. And so he was supposed to protect her. Instead of that, he became the enemy. So she wanted to commit suicide. She was very suicidal. She had this trauma that she had became so much of a part of her, confusion in life. Just to get away from it, she was willing to do anything. So my son said to her that, she said, "What purpose have I got in life?" So he said, "Listen, there's other girls that are in the same situation as you, and because they have no one to talk to, you can talk to them. You have been through this experience. You know what it means. You know what's going on, and you can comfort them. You can tell them that as traumatic as this experience is and as terrible as, you can find something in your soul that's more powerful, that is good, that the essence good cannot be destroyed, and you have found this essence good, right? And truly, you had to go through terrible trials and difficulties, but you have found some essential good inside, and you can help other people with. So the idea of helping others, that itself helped her. But on the other hand, she did have to help others. So the same thing, the Jewish people going through this terrible exile that we've been going through with holocausts and expulsions and all this terrible stuff. But somehow or other, I'm not trying to excuse this. Don't try to say that, it's a, say, oh, it's a good thing, Holocaust is great. It's, it taught us lessons. But nevertheless, one of the things the Rebbe said that before he was 3 years old, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he already had in his mind how Moshiach is going to come and explain all the pain of the Jewish people, how somehow or other this whole business is going to be worthwhile, which he's going to have a lot of explaining to do. The explanation is really going to have to be one, whopper of an explanation. I can't possibly explain, how this could possibly, but it will be. There's something waiting for us that is so good, and something waiting for us inside of us that's so good, that somehow or other will realize that all of this 2,000 years of exile, or maybe 4,000 years from the time of Abraham, it was somehow or other worth it. That's Mashiach is going to be worth it. How is it going to do? It's going to be a bigger miracle than Moses taking the Jews out of Egypt. How Mashiach is going to take us out of all of our misconceptions. But it's going to happen. And everything that's happening now is just a stage to that. Well, also, Bnei Israel, the Jewish people that went into Israel, it says into Egypt, they were 70. Yishlom, we can say the in this is hinted at that the whole idea of of going into Egypt, into exile, Bein Shivim Umus, we went into 70 among the 70 nations. I know that there's more nations. How many nations are in the United Nations? I don't know, 150 nations or something like that. the Torah always refers to them as 70 nations. That the 70 nations correspond to the 70 souls that went into Egypt. 70 souls that went into Egypt. Kamispar b'nei Israel. It says in the blessings of Zohar Bracha. Yiglu et Geulat Yisrael, and this will be the 70 nations when the 70 nations will be improved when all the Jews who were based on the 70 souls that went into Egypt, when they go out of Egypt. Shakoach compels this, that the ability to bring about this total redemption and education and rehabilitation of the whole entire world comes from the 70 souls that went down into Egypt. Those are the 70, what's called what they call it, progeny? Progeny, is that a word? The 70 direct relatives of Jacob. Al derech, like it says, Rabbeinu Eliezer ben Azariah. He said, I am like 70 years. That's why I said the number 70. Because that number 70, that represents all of the sparks, all of the relatives, direct relatives of Jacob that went into Egypt. This 70 gives the power, Shemazkirin, that when we talk about going out of Egypt, it brings to the days of the Moshiach to get the another 70 that we will achieve in others. What's this number 70? The Ayin Ravatai of Kriyat Shema. If you look in the Bible, a Torah scroll, you'll see that in the book of Deuteronomy, where it says the sentence, listen, Jews, God is our God, God is one. What is it? We say fourth paragraph, fourth chapter of this. So it says Shema Yisrael. So the Torah has to be written exactly right. One of the things about the Torah is the letter Ayin of Shema Yisrael is written big. The Ayin is written big, and Echad and the Dalet is written big. There's 22 letters, the one whole aleph base of big letters, and one whole aleph base of small letters, and all the rest is middle letters. But the Ayin is big. Ayin is the numerical value of 70. So we will merit to the big Ayin. The big Ayin is talking about the 70. Let's talk about the 7 emotions of God, how each one of them includes 10. It's explained in great length in Chassidut. So this will be revealed to the whole entire world. Mizem, moving from this is understood also. And what's learning over here about the Jewish people, that the Jewish people should know that even when they are in exile, even now when we were all confused and there's right, the big communists are run by big Jews, and big Jews are doing all these terrible things, right? In the world, Freud, and messed up the whole entire world with his his meaningless theories and things like that, and then Marx and all these confused, terrible, how do you say, the self-destructive and destructive Jews. Nevertheless, you have to know that in addition to the fact that the Jewish people already will exist constantly, and the Jewish people are always complete Jewish people. Like it also says, Vayechi, Vayechantu Oto, in the end of last week's Torah portion, the end of the book of Genesis, we said that Jacob was embalmed and he was put into Egypt. Vayechantu Oto, that he was put into Egypt. Yechantu Oto, what does it mean? That Jacob's body should remain eternally. It says also that Jacob didn't die. Remember, we learned that last week. These are the names of the Jewish people that went into Egypt. This even gives more. It's called the name of the redemption of the Jewish people. The same Jewish people that went into Egypt, the same Jewish nation that went into Egypt, that's going to be the same Jewish nation that's going to get out. Excuse me 1 second. So, namely, what? All of the Jewish people, healthy in body and soul, will all be in a way of Geulat Yisrael, total freedom of the Jews. And what happens when a person is totally free? Then he can be himself. Then he can be himself. It's like people that are alcoholics, you know, and the drug addicts and things like that. They say, "What am I going to do without alcohol? How can I live without alcohol?" You see, there's millions and millions of people walking around and they're not alcoholics, and they're living, right? And I can't see, right? People that smoke, used to be people, big thing of smoking. Speaking of people that are smoking, they can't. How can you live without cigarettes? How can you live? They can't figure it out. What do you mean? How can you live? It's obvious you can. There's millions, billions of people that don't smoke. Like, a person is caught so much inside of himself, he thinks he can't get out. That's Egypt. That's Mitzrayim. When a person stops getting out, when it does get out, and he stops with his addictions, whatever, even if he's addicted to his selfishness, which everybody is to a certain degree, then all of a sudden you have more time and more energy and more, how do you say, calmness in order to do things, new things. You get pleasure out of just walking on the street. You get pleasure out of breathing. You get pleasure just to say hello to people. People don't get on your nerves so much. Until Kol Yomei Chayecha, all the days of your life will be bring to the Mashiach, as we're going to talk about. According to this, Efshar Lavin, we can understand the connection of this week's Torah portion to the 20th day of Tevet. What happened on the 20th day of Tevet? That was yesterday. This is the day of the passing away of the Ramba'm, Maimonides, that it always comes right next to this week's Torah portion. My grandson went there last night. Maimonides, and especially according to what's known, that Maimonides, he passed away like about 800 years ago, something like that, right? 800 years ago, 850 years ago. Maimonides. Okay, now who was Maimonides? The name is sort of misleading. Maimonides, it sounds like some sort of a Greek philosopher or something. Maimonides. To tell you the truth, I don't know how he got that name. Who made that up? Maimonides. Anyway, it comes Maimonides because he is Maimon. His father was named Maimon. His name was Moses, the son of Maimon. Moshe ben Maimon. And there was no Jew in the history of Judaism that was really anything like him. He took all of the laws of the Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud, and he also knew Kabbalah. He knew Kabbalistic ideas. He did not integrate them that much in his teachings because he wanted everything to be very practical and very, how do you say, on the surface. But he took all of the laws of Judaism, everything in great detail. All those laws about the Holy Temple, laws about impurity, and he ends up with the laws about Moshiach. No one in Judaism talks about all these laws. There is no book and legally, there's a lot to talk about Mashiach, but as far as exactly what's going to be according to Jewish law, he's the only one. Everything. So there's even a saying that they say that from Moses until Moses, there was never like Moses. From Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, until Moses ben Maimon, which is like almost 3,000 years of Judaism, there was never anyone like Moses ben Maimon. That includes all the prophets and all the all the prophets and all the Rishonim and the Acharonim. Good morning, Lord. So it says in the 20th day of Tevet, which that was yesterday, is the passing away of Maimonides. And this also always comes right next to a Shemot. Especially according to what is known, that when you eat on the food on Shabbat, the meals you have on Shabbat, which is it's a mitzvah to eat meals on Shabbat. It comes by means of the work that you do before Shabbat. Like the rabbis say, Misha Torch Berev Shabbat, a person who makes effort, who prepares before Shabbat, on Friday, he'll eat on Shabbat. Move on, so it's understood, so there must be a connection between the day of the passing away of Ramba'm, Maimonides, and to the parsha of the Torah of this Shabbat. Parsha Shemot. Well, let me just have a look over here 1 second. Is that right, what I just said? Give me a look over here. The problem is... No, I'm sorry. Today is the 20th of Tevet. Right now. Last night was, right. So you have to work before Shabbat, and that's this. So because today is the day of the passing away of the Ramba'm, Maimonides, so the work that Maimonides did is what will bring us into Shabbat, which the whole idea of Shabbat is the future redemption. But it's like this: by Maimonides, the Ramba'm, Rabbi Moses ben Maimon, we see an amazing thing. Most of his life, much of his life, he was in Egypt. Maimonides had basically a very, very, how do you say, a very troubled life. He was tremendously talented. He became the chief physician of the Sultan of Egypt. And he was a Jew, and everybody knew him. I mean, he advertised that he was a Jew. And the Jews back then were not, particularly admired. It was a Muslim state. And nevertheless, he was the chief doctor of everybody. The trusted him terribly. If he would have made tremendously, if he would have made one mistake, it would have been a bad. So he had a tremendous. The responsibility was hanging over him. In addition to that, he had to write all these books. He felt the pain of all the Jewish people and the confusion of all the Jewish people, and he wanted to, as much as possible, alleviate that confusion and that pain. And so he wrote the laws and books. The Jews were all spread all over the world. So he said, that's the idea of by Rambam, we can say clearly that when he was in Egypt, he did over there in Egypt, he brought about the idea of the redemption of the Jewish people. What does it mean? He was in Egypt. He brought about a spiritual, taking away the darkness of the exile, something like going out of Egypt the first time, going out in the nighttime. And also he prepared for the future redemption. Kamarum is like it says in the name Ramba'm. Ramba'm is the letters Rabbi Moses ben Maimon, but it's also Ravot Moftai Be'eretz Mitzrayim. I will increase my miracles in the land of Egypt. It's a sentence in the Torah here, 80, or is it? In Parshat Bo. It's in 2 weeks, we'll learn. B'yota Mitzrayim, that when Moses ben Maimon, when he was in Egypt, over there he wrote his 14-volume book, which is called Mishnah Torah. Sefer Halachot, which are laws, Kabetz Torah Shebal Peh, Kula. That amazing thing he says over there. He said, you don't have to go through the whole Talmud to know all the laws of the Torah. I'm writing a book, a 14-volume book. What is it? A 14-volume masterpiece, whatever. And it's going to have all the laws of the Torah in it. All the laws of the Torah. And now you can read this book. You'll know all of the laws, what you have to know of the Torah. You don't have to go through the Talmud and try to pick them out and try to decide, because the whole Talmud is just arguments. Which argument you should take, which opinion you should take. This is my opinion. This is my opinion. And means of this, Maimonides opened up a whole new world of debate and arguments in Judaism, because Judaism depends on opinions to know if your opinion is right, if your opinion is wrong. Right? It's very important in Judaism that the laws should be internalized, that you really do feel that this is what God wants. And maybe you can have in your mind, listen, why should it be this way? Maybe it should, I got a better idea, do it this way. So when you look in the Talmud, you see, listen, what your idea is, there was greater people, much greater people that had your idea, but there was people that were greater than them. And you have to change your opinion. So Maimonides, he came out with all of his opinions. And now you can say, well, I disagree with the Rambam. So you can disagree, write it down if you disagree, and try to find proof for it. And if you do, maybe it'll be okay. There are people that disagree with the Rambam. There's sometimes the Beit Yosef disagreed, sometimes the Ran, sometimes the Rosh, the Rif. There was other opinions that Rabbi Alfasi, and sometimes it says Rabbi Ashir. So it says, but nevertheless, the Rambam was the first person, and to date, he's the only person that has a book with all of the laws of the Torah, all the laws. That this is what's going to bring about the future redemption. The Matzab de Choshech, lightening up the darkness of exile, like the Maimonides says when he starts off his book in his foreword to his book. The reason that he made his massive 14-volume work that covers all of the laws in great detail of the Torah is in order to do away with, to dissipate the concealment and the confusion which is made when a person learns the Torah. That all of those different explanations and commentaries and laws and how do you call it? What do they call it? The arguments of the Torah nitkashu b'yamim in our days. People don't understand what is the final opinion. Listen, in his days, it's even more. Some people really thought that maybe you can't come to a conclusion. Maybe that the Torah is just so massive and it's so confusing that you can't really come to a clear conclusion. So Maimonides said it's not so. Here's an example, right? I'm writing a conclusion of all of the laws of the Torah. If you want to disagree, that's okay. You want to disagree. In fact, I'm writing these ideas down so that you can disagree. You can put your opinion on and see maybe you're wrong, maybe you're right. But this will encourage more learning Torah and more argument, more discussion in Judaism. Therefore, Re'iti, I saw that Ramba'm writes, I'm writing these words, these laws down in order that they should be clearly explained, the laws of the Torah in a short way. All of it will be ordered, so you won't have to go through all of the arguments and etc. in order to distill what to actually do. I'm showing you a book which is telling you just what to do. And so he did. Maimonides wrote this book, which is called Mora Derech, to show the way for all the Jewish people for all generations. Israel, beginning with the Jewish people in Egypt in the generation of Maimonides. From there, it's also brought out his laws in all the places in the whole world. But I think only the Yemenites today go only according to the Maimonides. I don't think that there's any other group in Judaism that goes only according to Maimonides. Because there are also other great people that they disagreed with certain conclusions that he came to. That was not the rule, it was the exception, but nevertheless there are. Until the Bnei Israel, the Jewish people in last generations, including by means of this, many, many books are founded on the book of Maimonides. Kolomar, in other words, the main book, of course, is what's called the Shulchan Aruch, which was written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, something like 400 years ago. And he bases his book as much as possible on the Ramba'm, on Maimonides. He has all the laws which are practical for now. He doesn't talk about the Holy Temple and the laws of the sacrifices. And that's called the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch, that's the main book of Jewish law, practical Jewish law today. He bases it as much as possible on Maimonides. That's what he says. The Maimonides, Ramba'm, probably brought about that even when Jews are in exile and Layla Aravim in the nighttime in Egypt, really in Egypt, nevertheless you can have going out of Egypt. When did he have time to write this? It's impossible to understand. But he wrote this book, Geula Yisrael, Bedugmas Pulat Rabbeinu HaKodesh. This is something like what the Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi did when he made the Mishnayot. When he made the Mishnayot, it says like 100 years after the second temple was destroyed, something like that. So Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, he gathered all the laws together and he wrote them down in the Mishnah. Before he did that, it was called Torah Shebaal Peh. It was called the oral Torah because you weren't supposed to write it down. It was supposed to be passed down so that you wouldn't confuse the explanation of the Torah with the actual letters of the Torah. Because the letters of the Torah are holy. And the explanations, the letters are not holy. The ideas are. And Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, he wrote this down. This was like 1,900 years ago, something like that. He wrote it down. So he gathered everything together, all of the laws that were discussed by all the rabbis, and he wrote it all down. Why did he do it? Kadosh lo tishkach, so that the Torah should not be forgotten from the Jewish people. Kamarumas, like it's also in the beginning of the Mishnah, we're talking about going out of Egypt in the nighttime. That's the first Mishnah that there is. And from this, and even more, in addition to the fact that we talk about going out of Egypt in the nighttime, Maimonides also brought about the idea of Kol Yamei Chayecha Lavi Elamut Mashiach. Maimonides brought about the idea that every single moment of your life, you should realize how important and essential talking about Mashiach is, and thinking about Mashiach and doing everything possible to bring Mashiach. You do like it's known that the book of Maimonides, it has all the laws of the Torah, even the laws which are relevant to the Holy Temple when they were, and also the laws of the Mashiach, the third temple. Mashiach, Maimonides says clear, the Mashiach is going to come and he'll rebuild the temple, he'll build the temple, and he'll gather all the Jews together. Shemorot, this indicates to the Jewish people the laws which are relevant to the days of the Mashiach. How you should prepare for this. That Mashiach is not just this idea, you make a play about or something like that. It's this wispy sort of, impossible carrot that's hanging in front of this goat. And the goat is the Jewish people and the carrot is the Mashiach. We can never get to it or something like that. Just this romantic idea of longing for the goal you will never achieve and etc. That it's not so. Mashiach is an actual, factual, how do you say, practical and incredibly valuable goal of the Jewish people. That's the only reason we're here, is to bring Mashiach. Mashiach is going to be a person that's going to activate all of the 14 books of Maimonides. That every single law about the Holy Temple, about the impurity, about what Shabbat is, everything will be activated. And he'll bring the Biat Mashiach truly and complete. And that's the whole idea that the Ramba'm himself, he lived 70 years. He passed away at the age of 70. The days of his life were 70 years. This indicates by him that it was revealed that what Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah said, that I am 70 years old, that he brought about the going out of Egypt in all situations for all of the 70 nations, like we said before. Those are the 70 souls that went down into Egypt. Even in the nighttime, we should bring to the days of the Mashiach, like we said, by Rebbe Eliezer ben Azariah. You do according to what it says, that the day of the passing away of a tzaddik, that all of his deeds and all of his Torah that he did all of his life, they are elevated up. They are elevated. His sum total of his life becomes more and more practical and more meaningful. V'zeh me'ir, it reveals also below and brings about salvation in the whole world. So it's understood that therefore the 20th day of Tevet today is the day of the passing away of Maimonides. Is revealed all of his deeds and all the Torah that the Ramba'm did, and he by composing this book of Mishneh Torah. Mishneh Torah is these 14 volume book. The Eretz Mitzrayim, and he did it all in Egypt, and all of the other types of service of God that he did in the whole course of the 70 years of his life. This will bring about salvation in the whole entire world. In a way that this will be this will show the way of all the confused. He wrote the book, The Guide to the Perplexed. He also wrote a lot of letters to confused congregations, like in Taiman and Yemen and these places, the Jews that had been sort of separated from Judaism. There were a lot of Jews that had been forced to receive Islam. The leaders of the Muslim nation, they always changed, and they had different attitudes toward Jews. So there was one time, one group, I don't remember the names of the groups, Mogim or somebody, they forced all the Jews to convert. They tried to force Muhammad himself. He made a big thing of it. There was one time he beheaded 800 Jews. He was very proud of it, to force them to convert. So they wrote to the Ramba'm, what should we do? Can we come back to Judaism? We've left Judaism. Can we come back? There were certain leaders of the Jewish people that said, no, you left, that's it. Right? You should have given your lives. You didn't do it, so you're outcast. And Maimonides said no. Ramba'm said it's not so. And he comforted them and said, you come back to Judaism, you're just as good as everybody else. The Jewish people and all the generations afterwards, Maimonides provided a guiding light for all Jewish people. According to this, it's understood the novelty of that we eat on Shabbat, the meal that we're going to eat on Shabbat was prepared by what we did before Shabbat. But before Shabbat, that's the passing of the day of the Ramba'm. That the meal that we eat on Shabbat, since it becomes by means of the work that we did before Shabbat, namely reminding ourselves of the Maimonides and the 70 years of his life, So this is all found in a revealed way and brings salvation in the world on this Erev Shabbat today. So it's understood from this, Mazem Mosif, how this adds on to this coming Shabbat, Avodah B'Pol, Geulas Yisrael, the Jewish people, even when they are in exile. So the power and the accomplishments of the 70 years of the Maimonides, which is all rolled up into one amazing unit today on the day of his passing away, and this brings about blessing and salvation for the whole world. What can we learn from this? Simply, what can we learn from this? Limud v'pashtut. Simply, what can we learn? What can we learn from this? And especially our generation and our time. We've already spoken many times that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, that he's the leader of our generation, and the Rebbe said this over and over again, that he himself is just an extension, he's a continuation of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he said that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's the Moshiach of our generation. Then in addition to the fact that we've already finished all of our work, the Jewish people, I mean, people that listen to this class, we're learning, how much of life have you experienced? 70 years, 80 years, 90 years. The Jewish people have been around suffering in one form or another, either because of self-inflicted suffering or because of external suffering, for 3,300 years. And from the time of Abraham, it's like 4,000 years. So that's a lot of suffering, a lot of serving God, and a lot of holding on to God under the worst conditions in the world, right? When any normal person would just try to get out of it. And the Jewish people said, no, we're happy to be Jews. We're happy to die for Judaism. What are you going to get out of it? I don't know. It's true. That's who I am. So it says, we've already finished all of the suffering. We've already finished all the service, the self-sacrifice. And the Jewish people have already done tshuva, he said, that the critical mass of Jews have already returned to Judaism. Their minds are in the right places. And we finished everything. We've even shined up the buttons for the parade of the Moshiach. So therefore, what happens? What are we supposed to do now? It has to be only that God should just open up our eyes of the Jewish people, and they should see that the true redemption is already here, and that we're already sitting in front of what's called the set table, and there is the fish, the Leviathan, and the pure ox, and all. It's already here. Okay, what? Mizem moving from this is understood. She'im kavar bi'arida Mitzrayim. If we already went down to Egypt thousands of years ago, and these are the names of the Jewish people that went into Egypt, it already was revealed the redemption of the Jewish people. In B'kol Zamanim Avodas Bnei Yisrael is lahamshich et hagula. All we have to do is just reveal the redemption actually. If that was the way back then, how much more so after Kavar Yeshno B'zeh Hariboy the Masenu B'Avodasenu B'Meshach Kol Hadorot. If so, now all of the generations since the destruction of the temple, right? How many commandments the Jewish people have done since the Torah was given? The Torah was given. And then the Torah was given, they went into the land of Israel. And they were in the land of Israel for how long? 1,300 years. All that time they were doing Torah and commandments. And then after the temple was destroyed, the Jewish people suffered terribly, and they're still doing Torah, the commandments. Think of how much merit the Jewish people have, including Rebbe Eliezer ben Azariah in his time, and the Maimonides in his time, and all the tzaddikim, the richest, and all the generations, and all the last generations, the service of our rabbis, of the rabbis of Chabad, which are there. Each one of them is a direct descendant from Beit David and Shevet Yehuda. This includes also the service of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe in the course of his 70 years that he was in the world. How much more so in our generation and our time right now that we've already finished everything. We have the promise in the Torah that is promised. Call Yemei Chayecha Lavi Lemot Mashiach. I heard about somebody, just maybe this is this, that they called him up from the tax bureau or something like that in America, and they said, "Hello, is your name Mr. Joe Gross? Yes, your what is it? Your passport number is this or this." Says, "Well, listen, we have a rebate for you," and this guy is poor. They're about to kick him out of his house or something. We've got a rebate to you for that $1 million and we have to return to you taxes. Ted, what? What are you talking about? Says that you live in this place, you have such a name. Yes, I do. Well, you just have to come and collect the money. It's here. Said, man, I don't even have a bank account. What am I going to do with the money? I got no place to keep the money. Listen, whenever you want to take it, it's yours. So meanwhile, this person is used to living in the streets, as a bum, and used to be maybe it's his father's money left for him as an inheritance, whatever. But he's rich, but he just doesn't take out the money. As soon as he does, so that's what the Rebbe is trying to tell us. We're rich. We're rich. The redemption is already here. Everything is already here. We just have to take out the money. We just have to look at life in a little bit different way. These are the days of each and every Jew. His physical life as a soul and a body includes in the days of the Mashiach without any delay. In other words, there doesn't have to be any more destructions or any more battles or Gog and Magog and things like that. The redemption is immediately, the right now in this place. All of the Holocausts have already finished. The Rebbe said it's not going to happen again. Don't worry. And we saw here, if you live in Israel, you saw that like since the last 3 years, they've shot at us 30,000 missiles and almost no one was hurt. No one was hurt. It's amazing. 30,000 missiles. Each one of them had, a warhead on the top of it, which was at least, let's say 100 hand grenades, bare minimum. And it didn't do anything. 30,000. Kachsha Rega Acharon, that the last moment of exile and the last point of the exile will become immediately the first section of the first moment of redemption. And you have to remember this whole idea of redemption is one thing alone: how we look at the world, how we look at God, how we look at the Torah. That's the idea of Hasidut, to change our orientation. That's going out of Egypt, receiving the inside of the Torah. That's what it means, the days of your life, even now, even in this place, without stopping whatsoever, without any delay. Each and every Jew can immediately come to, like it says, Reuven and Shimon and Levi, the 12 tribes went into Egypt, and the same exact 12 tribes will come out of Egypt. All of the days of your life will be to bring the days of the Mashiach. As far as action goes, what should we do? The intention is that the service of the Jewish people right now, everything you do has to be devoted to bringing to Mashiach. The days of the Mashiach. That the Mashiach should not just be a person, it should have an effect in time and place in the soul of all the Jews and souls of all mankind. Legalot, to reveal already how it is that the Jewish people that went into Egypt in exile, really the fact is, this is the redemption of the Jewish people. And by means of this, we prepare ourselves for the days of the Mashiach. This includes especially what we're celebrating now, the day of the passing away of the Ramba'm of Maimonides, by means of that we added on and we increased learning Maimonides. In Chabad, we have a custom that every day we learn 3 chapters of Maimonides. Those people, then in that we finish the whole book of the 14 books every year, once a year. And there's some people that only do 1 chapter, so they finish once every 3 years. But we learn Ramba'm every day. This includes also, and that we should join in, we should participate, or at least we should encourage, if you're already participating, learning Ramba'm, each and every person, 3 chapters a day, or 1 chapter a day, or at least the book of the commandments of the Maimonides. And especially in the book of Maimonides itself, Ramba'm himself, the laws of the coming of the Mashiach, right in the end of the laws of the Ramba'm. In the last 2 chapters of the laws of kings, it talks about what are the laws of Mashiach, just to make it clear in everybody's mind what Mashiach is and what the criteria of Mashiach is. In addition to this, you should take trouble. You should make an effort to encourage and inspire other Jews that are around you, men, women, and children, in a way that they should also be excited about Maimonides and about the laws of Maimonides, and especially the laws of Mashiach. May it be God's will that by means of our just resolution, our decision, that what we decide, we're going to learn more, we're going to do more, We're going to do everything we can to bring to Mashiach. We're going to be more pleasant to other people. We're going to give more charity to other people. We're going to be trying to help as much as possible, to learn Torah as much as possible, to be as careful in the commandments as much as possible. By means of this, we'll receive the reward. And what is the reward? The reward is like Maimonides says in the end, that after the Melech Mashiach comes from the house of King David, it's going to be a person that he learns Torah and he does commandments just like David did. And he will convince all the Jewish people to walk in the ways of the Torah and to strengthen Judaism and to fight the battles of Judaism against all the forces which try to weaken or confuse Judaism. A person that even has these goals, that he learns Torah all the time and that he does the commandments and he encourages the Jews to do the same, we can suppose that person is the Mashiach. Shekavar, yeah, and after that he will be Mashiach Vadai. And there's the goal of Mashiach is to do away with all of the enemies of Judaism and to strengthen and strengthening the Torah, and that's the goal. And when he succeeds in that goal, and the Holy Temple comes from heaven, and all the Jewish people are gathered together, then you can know for sure this man is the Mashiach. But until then, anyone who tries to do this, you can suppose he's Mashiach, and you should listen to what he says. You should follow him, because the becoming a Mashiach actually depends on us. The whole thing of Mashiach is just to change our attitude toward life. So we change our attitude, and this is what will bring the Mashiach will succeed. He'll build the Holy Temple in its place. He'll gather all the Jewish people together. Then he will fix up the whole entire world to serve God until it says, in the end, the world will be filled with the awareness of God like water fills the ocean.